What's up guys, welcome back to TB Electric where we do how-to videos for your e-moto. This is an Ebmx X-9000 controller and we're going to be installing it on the brand new Talaria Sting MX5. This is going to give it more power and you guys are probably coming from our other full review video of this controller on this bike. And today we're going to show you the full install process and guide, show you the app setup, show you the recommended settings so you guys can purchase this controller, install it, and get out and ride. Let's get started. All right, before we start taking the bike apart, let's show what comes in the box of the X9000. You get this nice sheet where you can use to download the app and you can get all set up with that. We open it up, we've got our controller here. That's the X9000. We've got our wires coming off of it. And then if we open this up further, we get our Talaria wire harness. Now when you're purchasing this controller, you can opt and select the specific bike that you're going to be putting it on. So that's where you would select which model. The Talaria harness is the same for MX3, MX4, and MX5. And then they will have a specific MX5 kit that has a couple of different length screws and washers to be able to mount the controller on your bike. At the moment, we have the standard Talaria kit with some small washers, and we're just going to get some slightly longer screws and mount this up. So if you're purchasing and you want to buy it right now, you can buy the standard Talaria MX4, MX3 kit. As long as you use some slightly longer screws, you're going to be able to mount it just fine. Extra in here, we've got our SW102 Ebmx display. No, you cannot use the stock display that looks the same as this. They're programmed totally different and this controls your controller. Here we have our thumb regen brake. This is, very similar to the one you've got on your MX5 already. We'll have a lot more tunability and customization with this on the controller. We have our Bluetooth module. This is how you connect your phone to the controller. We have our 2-in-1 cable that connects to the controller and to the display and the regen brake. That's basically all you get. There's really not a lot because it's a pretty simple process. So now we're going to start taking the bike apart and get this mounted up. When doing a controller install, you always want to start by removing your battery so there's no power going through your system. In this case, the Talaria MX5 has this quick removable lid, which is super nice. And we have no breaker. So we're just going to go ahead and unplug our battery. And then we can go ahead and remove it. Controllers can hold just a little bit of power inside of them even when the battery's disconnected. So we're going to put the key back in, turn the bike on. We're just going to let it sit for a couple of seconds. That's going to discharge our controller, so we're totally safe. Now that we have our battery out, we're going to remove our fender and our horn cover to give us some more room. This is just a 4mm Allen up here. You probably put it on when you assembled your bike. Break those free. Okay, grab that, put our bolts in it. Next up, we're going to remove our horn cover. We got a 3mm Allen. We got 3 bolts, one on each side, and then one in the middle right here. Okay. That one is nice and easy. Set that aside. If you're wondering, the 2 long bolts go on the sides, the one shorter bolt goes in the middle. Next up, we're going to drop our skid plate. So in this case, we do have an upgraded Grit Shift heavy hitter skid plate, but the process is the same. You're going to remove these 2 bolts, one right here, and then the exact same spot on the other side. And for this case, we're not going to remove the entire skid plate. We're just going to remove the top 2 and bend it down out of the way. Okay, the bolts are out of our skid plate, so we're just going to grab it and bend it down just like that. Now it's out of the way, so we can get to all these wires in here. So first off, we're going to start by just taking our controller right off. We got 4 bolts, these 2 here and here, same on the other side. Once you remove all those, your controller's kind of going to be dangling by wires. We'll get those unplugged. Okay, now that your controller bolts have been removed, you can pull it out and you can see that you've got these 2 big plugs right here. This is that brown wire that you already cut to make your bike go faster. We're just going to unplug both of those. Okay, now the top of our controller is unplugged. Next process I like to do to make it easier is I like to cut both of these zip ties that hold the power and ground wire just to give us more room. See, now we can have a lot more space to work here, and we're gonna move all 5 of these. They're a 5mm Allen. I'm gonna break them free and then use my electric screwdriver. Okay, all those are off. Here's our controller. We are no longer going to be using these stock bolts, any of these 5. So what I like to do, take them all off and put them back into your stock controller, just like this. So if you ever have to put it back on, you have them. Once all that has been removed, we're going to go up top and remove our stock display and our stock regen lever. So with these, we're going to have to trace the wires back in, and to do that, we're going to remove our key plate. Just grab those 2 bolts and save them so they don't fall out. This you can just dangle down there out of the way. And then let's start finding our wires. So the cool thing is our stock display has a little break-off point right here, as does our regen. Now we can just unscrew both of these, get them out of the way. 2.5mm Allen up underneath the display. Okay, once that's loose enough, it'll hinge open, come off. Again, put that screw back in so you don't lose it. Okay, our regen throttle is a 3mm Allen. That all the way out. Another hinge. Pull that off. All right, on the MX5, these cables, after you've disconnected the connector, are built into the wire harness. So I'm just gonna unzip tie them from the rest of my wires that are coming out, and then we are gonna just tuck them down into this mess of wires and just have them be out of the way. All that, and that. Okay, so those 2 guys, you can see them go right into the wire harness. So you could just like fold them up, zip tie them up, whatever you want to do. And we have quite a bit of room in here because we don't have a breaker. But next up, now that those are removed, we're going to run some of the wires up for our new controller and mount our display and our regen brake. So here we have our display, our regen brake, and our 2-in-1 cable. That's what connects to both of these. So first off, we're going to grab our 2-in-1 cable. If you got the single end, is going to go down. We're going to put it right here. You have a couple options of doing this. You can remove the bolt here, and you can move this battery plate backwards. You can fold it out of the way and have more room. We may do that in a minute, but right now, super easy. I can just run that right down. You'll see it came out the bottom, and then this guy is basically just going to sit right here, kind of like our other setup did. When installing these, I personally am going to do my left-hand regen brake right here, and I'm going to put the display over here. I've got more room to work with. I'm going to slide my brake a little further in because I have plenty of room to reach. But you guys set it up however you want to do. We'll loosen this. This is a 3mm Allen. Open its clamp up. Pop that baby on there. And then you guys just position it how you want. I like to kind of feel how my hand's going to be, and you don't want it to be too close to your grip because you're actually actuating this lever. And we'll just tighten that down. And then I'm probably going to move my horn button over a little bit now that I have a little more room there. And we'll tuck this. It's going to go down through our forks here and go right into the middle right here. And that will plug into our 2-in-1 cable. You'll notice orange goes into orange. Just make sure you plug it in the exact right way. There are arrows. Okay. And then our display, we're going to run on this other side. Run it in. Plug it in. Okay. Now the display is a 2.5mm. Open it up. And then I've got to slide my brake over, and then we'll put it on. Okay, we get our display in there. Close it up. Screw it in. Then same thing, just orient this however you want it to be. Go something like that so we can access these buttons. All right, I'm just doing some zip tying because I like some nice clean cable management. Okay, now that our controls are all mounted, our wires are run down through, we're going to grab our key plate again and we're going to put it back. There's nothing else we need to run at this point, so we'll just get our wires tucked very carefully, neatly into there and put that back on. Okay. Now most of the easy part is done, and now we have, still simple, but you gotta mess around with trying to fit everything in this tight compartment. The X-9000 has more plugs and wires and a few things that you have to reroute. So here we have our wire harness. You'll notice we unplugged 2 plugs off the stock controller. That's what these are for. So these 2 guys right here. So we're gonna go ahead and plug them in. They only go one way. So those will pop in, get a nice snap.
What are you guys doing in here?
What's up, Braid?
Fun room time. Oh.
Okay, got that popped in. Reed told me he's excited to ride this bike later, so I'm getting it all built up for him. So here, this will connect to our X-9000 right here. This has a little cover. Pop that off and we'll connect that, but we'll do it in a little while. Here we have...
Hey,
Put it in.
Mountain Dew, peach, cream.
It's not gonna hear anything he said because I have the mic, but he said Mountain Dew, peach, and cream. And some ice. Okay, here we have our 3 plugs coming off. This little guy here is for our Bluetooth module. This big guy here is for our 2-in-1 cable, so that will plug into there. This is for the one I talked about a minute ago, and this you are not going to use. This is for doing a custom build with an X-9000. That's why it's taped up and it has a plug on it. It comes that way. We're going to tuck that down into here. So our first order of business is to get these 3 guys put on, and we've got color coordinating. We got blue, green, and yellow, and you got BG and yellow to match them up. And you're going to use the hardware that was included in your controller. As I mentioned before, we're using the standard Talaria kit, and so if you do the MX5 specific one, you're going to get slightly different hardware. So we have 4 little spacers right here. Those are for mounting our controller to these brackets. That'll give us a little bit more width because this controller is narrower than the stock controller. The rest of it is essentially for mounting these 5 right here. So we've got our 5 screws, and then we have washers and lock washers for each. So you got 1 for each, and then you've got a lock washer for each, and then there is 2 extra washers. So for your bolt, you're going to put your lock washer on first, then your big washer, then you're going to put it through there, and then that's going to go, we got yellow, we're going to go to yellow right here. Grab my handy dandy electric guy, put that on. Now I'm going to give it a nice little cinch up here because that thing's not as strong. You want to go nice and snug, but not too snug. And then we're going to do that for the other 2, and then we're going to do it for the positive and the negative. You got a plus and a minus right here. Sometimes when you're doing this, it is a lot easier if you have 2 people, someone that can like hold your controller right here while you do it. I've done enough that I can kind of get away with it, and my electric screwdriver definitely helps, but that is a nice little helpful tip. This is a TB Electric top tip. Okay, got those snugged up. Now comes the fun part where you have to get it up here to get your positive and your negative on, and it is helpful to also start plugging stuff in so that you can tuck it up out of the way, because once your controller's right here, there is not much room for stuff. As I mentioned, you're going to put this big guy down here that you're not going to use, and then the other 3 have got to go up. Okay, we're about to get this baby mounted up a little bit further. I went ahead and removed this bolt and the same on the other side, like we talked about before, so you can move your battery tray. You can just pop it down and that gives us a lot more room to work on our wires. So I'm gonna have Mark help me here. Another extra helping hand, make it a lot easier. Okay. Now that we're all connected here, now comes kind of the tricky bit where we got to figure out all our wiring. So you're going to be mounting the controller with the same 4 brackets here, the 4 bolts. We got to get rid of some of these wires. So this one is going to plug into this. We'll get that connected. Pop it in, and then you screw these together. Okay, then we can tuck those back up in here. Those plugs can go up. And then remember this one, we're gonna put down through, and it's usually easiest to go down through the middle, kind of like that. This one is gonna connect to this. That's our 2-in-1 cable that came from the top. It's got an arrow and an arrow. Make sure that's all the way connected. That again, we can almost reach up from the top. Pull it up so that it takes up a bit more room, and then we'll tuck that back in. And then we have one more, which is our Bluetooth, which I have right here. And this you can put wherever you would like it to be. Some people stick it down right here. Some people stick it up here. Whatever you want to do. We're going to put it up there because we have more room up there. So now we have to try and mount this up. And it's going to be difficult. It's going to take some trial and error. So you're going to have to try some stuff, and you kind of can dry run it, you know, by checking your wires, make sure nothing's getting pinched. You don't want anything pinched. And you'll try to do kind of, you know, either the bottom first or the top first. I think we're actually not looking too bad here. Okay, we've got it all situated here. We made sure none of our wires are being pinched. So I mentioned we're using the MX4 kit. It does have these washers. I grabbed some slightly longer screws, and we're gonna go screw, washer, and then controller. If you have the MX5 specific kit, it will have new screws that are longer because of the washers. Just doesn't want to go in. Okay, we got both these bolts on, and then I was able to make enough room up here to slide my plate back. I got that screw in, and now we're gonna grab a screw for this side, put it back through, and then we're gonna go around to the other side of the controller, make sure both those bolts will go in. I did put both of these in slightly loose so I can still move the controller around a little bit. Pretty normal for these controllers to fit pretty tight as far as wires go. There's just a lot in there that has to get tucked away. And in our case, our spacers are a little narrower because we're using the MX4 kit, so it bent our brackets in slightly, which I don't care about. We're still using some spacers. But if you get the MX5 specific kit, you'll get those new screws and the wider spacers. So now, down here, we can fold up our skid plate. Might have to mess with these wires just a little. Make sure that everything has a place. We can fold that up. While we're still over on this side, we're going to get our horn cover back on. Remember, you have 3 bolts, 2 that are long, 1 that's short. The one on this side are the long ones. That's why we remove the fender, is to be able to get to this center bolt, which is right here. Make sure your brake line's not getting smashed. Make sure it's in its groove. Okay. Now we'll go back to the other side, get our skid plate on, bolt in, and this bolt. Okay, last thing to put back together, down here is the fender. Do all 3 bolts and you'll be good to go, and then we'll head up top, get our battery in, try it out. Okay, our battery's going back in. Plug it back in. Hope we did everything right. Put our lid back on. Check out that ECD wrap on there. Looks nice. Quick release. Okay, this is where we take a deep breath and we hope nothing explodes. I mean, sparks. Display is on. That means we did good. There's the beep, and now we gotta open up our app and get it all programmed. All right, you guys have got your controller all installed. You turned it on. If your display came on, then everything should be installed correctly as far as we know. Now it's time to go into the app and actually program our controller. So you guys should have gotten that paper with your controller when you purchased it. You can go on there and use the QR code to actually download the Ebmx app. I already have it, of course, so we're gonna go into it right here, Ebmx app. Now I am already connected to the bike, but what you'll do, it'll pop up here at the top. And when your bike is on, it's gonna pop up. I already named mine MX5. You click that, you'll go in. So now here's our first page. We're gonna click over to settings and we're gonna start up here in general. Okay, what we're gonna do, go in and select our bike type, Talaria Sting. We're gonna select our motor type, and we're gonna scroll down to Talaria MX5 encoder. That's what you're gonna click. Okay, when you click that, it's gonna auto select a few other parameters, but then we're gonna go in and pick our battery, and we're gonna hit 20S 72 volt, and then battery model, 20S 72 volt stock Talaria MX5. Okay, select those. That's gonna build in some current limits. So this is street mode and race mode battery current limits. Those you can do a max of 160 amps. And we'll talk about Ebmx's recommended settings in a few minutes, but the max you'll be able to set it is kind of those safe limits. So we're gonna leave those at 160 for the time being. Down below we have our wheel diameter. This you set up if you have a stock bike. We're gonna have a document in the description of this video that has all the Ebmx recommended settings and what wheel diameter and gear ratio to put in. Now, if you have an aftermarket tire like we do right here, you're gonna measure by having the bike standing straight up on the ground, and you're gonna put something flat right here, and you'll measure from the ground to the bottom of that flat thing, and then you're gonna convert that to millimeters. You'll put it right here in your wheel diameter. All this is to get your speedometer an accurate speed. The stock gear ratio is 9.15. You'll put that in if you have a stock rear sprocket, which most of you do because there's no aftermarket ones right now. If you keep scrolling down, we have temperature unit. I like Fahrenheit, so I selected that. Speed unit, I selected mile per hour. Motor direction, you're gonna select anti-clockwise. The normal setup will have it at clockwise. That just means when you go forward, your motor's actually gonna be spinning backwards. So in this case, we're gonna switch it to anti-clockwise. Then the rest you're not gonna need to worry about. Click save, hit OK. We're gonna go back out. Next page, we have throttle. These are some settings you guys can play with. If you want off throttle regen, the maximum setting we recommend and Ebmx recommends selecting is 30%. You can toggle that on and off right here. And then down here, you can select your thumb throttle to be your regen brake. That's gonna be auto set up. And then if you keep going down, you guys can play with these settings, the ramping time, negative ramping time, input deadband, but I don't recommend changing them much. And I would be really careful with the negative ramping time. Don't put that very high, because that means when you let off the throttle, it's gonna take this amount of time, in this case 10 milliseconds, to actually let off the throttle. So if you add a bunch of time, it's gonna be delayed, which isn't safe. The biggest change you're gonna notice is your throttle expo. If you want the bike to be more jumpy in the throttle, go to the right and go positive. If you want it to be more smooth and kind of come on in a more ramp way, you would go to negative throttle expo. Those you'll notice a pretty drastic difference when you're playing with them. We'll save that, go back out, and then we're gonna skip peripheral setup. There's nothing you really need to do on this page, as well as diagnose. We're gonna skip that. We're gonna go over to modes and levels. So this is where you set up your 3 different modes within either street mode or race mode. So we're just going to use race for the time being. You can select your power levels. So now is where you're going to go and reference that Ebmx document that'll be in the video description, where you can select different power levels. In this case, Ebmx decided to build in 3 different sort of power tunes for the type of riding you want to do. They do a high speed tune, they do a mid-range tune, and then a low speed power and torque tune. And that's because by selecting different parameters, you kind of get the bike to feel different ways. And so again, you guys go and reference that document down below, and you can set your kilowatt level, your motor current, which is phase amps, which is your torque. It's going to have all of this in the document. You can select your power, your phase amps, and then it'll also have you set up in the general first tab that battery current limit. So each tune has a different limit built into there. So you guys just need to kind of keep it set up for which tune you pick, set all the parameters to that specific tune. And then if we go into controller calibration, this is where we're gonna actually set up our bike further. So here we have twist throttle calibration. We're gonna hit start. We're gonna wait. So you'll see it's doing the process to wait for this. Now make sure you're not pulling the throttle on release throttle setup. And then now we're going to press throttle. We're gonna hold it. Okay, now that is done. Hit save. Now we got thumb throttle calibration. Start that. We'll wait and we'll do the same process for this. Okay, press the throttle. Okay, that is done. Hit save. So now we're gonna calibrate our motor. We're gonna click encoder calibration in our case, otherwise you guys would have done it previously. Start, and you'll notice the motor and wheel are going to spin, so you want your bike up on a stand. Just let it do its thing. It'll take 20 or 30 seconds. Okay, our motor has been successfully calibrated. We're going to click OK. Okay, you don't really need to play with anything in this page apart from field weakening percentage. This is one of those main settings for the controller that'll be in that document in the video description, and this you will change based on which tune you select. If you're doing the top speed tune, you're going to do a maximum of 50%. If you're doing like the really high power but low top speed tune, you would do like 30%, is what I think is in that. It's referenced in that document. So now we're pretty much set up. We're gonna click save here, and now you guys can pretty much go and ride it. You will, on your display, you can select race 1, 2, and 3 with these arrow buttons up and down. So to get into street mode, you're gonna hold the down arrow, and then we were already in street, so you go back to race. So you can set up 6 different modes, 3 in street, 3 in race, right here in the app. Guys, that should be everything that you need to know to get your X-9000 installed on your MX5 and set up in the app. Please reference those documents in the video description. They will be very helpful. A lot of people setting up X-9000s, miss little steps here and there, and that can, make your bike not work. So follow the procedure to a T, reference that document for certain settings, and the one thing to know is if you do get a cutout while riding, it is more than likely your battery BMS tripping, which is okay. It's not ruining your battery. That's what the BMS or battery management system is designed to do. it basically protects your battery from having an issue or from your controller telling it to pull too much power. So in that case, what we recommend is either lowering your battery current limit or your field weakening down just a little bit. So if you're in race mode 3 and you get a cutout on a full throttle pull and you get a cutout, just lower one of those settings just a little bit and then you should be good to go. So if you guys have any questions on this setup or on the controller or on the bike, drop a comment in this video. We'll be sure to answer and help you guys out. There's also a wealth of knowledge in the Ebmx X-9000 Facebook group. The Ebmx guys and developers and employees are in that group actively helping people. So if you have another issue, that's also a good place to reference. Thanks for watching. Please hit that subscribe button if this video was helpful. We'll catch you next video. See ya.